Hey, what's going on? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today we'll be featuring Buffalo Jet. You guys got to know the Buffalo Jet fan. He is a up and coming Jets YouTuber. His content's really good. If you're not following along, you absolutely should be. So we talked about the week 1 matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, what looked good, what didn't look good, and then talked a little bit about the upcoming game against the Cleveland Browns. So without further ado, let's hop into the interview. All right, I'd like to welcome on Buffalo Jet fan on the show. What's going on, my man? How are you?
I'm doing great, Matt O'Leary. Appreciate you having me on. Let's talk some Jets, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna start with what we just saw in week 1, and we were both there in person. We got to see it live in action, and wanted to get your takeaways. I guess we'll start on the positive side first, then work our way to the negatives.
Yeah.
What are some things that stood out to you in a positive way from this week 1 performance?
There's honestly a lot, and based on the videos you've been putting out, I think we both agree like we don't like the moral victories. We want a winning mindset, especially from our players and our coaches. But also, if we let it digest and rewatch it, there were some takeaways that we can be slightly encouraged by. Number one, defensively, they look legit. Is it all fixed in one day? No, but there was a lot of questions answered to me, honestly. Number one, Jeff Ulbrich, he was a guy I was kind of on the fence about, and I wanted to know, can you create a game plan specific to your opponent and not run the quote unquote like vanilla defense trope that we've been saying? And they did. They understood the assignment. I mean, if you would have told me Lamar Jackson was going to be a non-factor in running the football and Mark Andrews was going to have 50 yards receiving and no touchdowns, I'm telling you we win that game. They couldn't run the ball at all. Sauce and DJ Reed played lights out. And to me, I don't know how well this defense is going to play throughout the rest of the year. But there's a few things, in my opinion, your defense either has or it doesn't. Your defense is either fast or it's not. It's either physical or it's not. You either can tackle or you can't. Those three things show up week in and week out. And the New York Jets defense on Sunday was fast. Quan Alexander flying around making plays. They were physical. I mean, you and I were there. You could hear it like Quincy and Whitehead, like whack, right? And I didn't see hardly any missed tackles, which drove us crazy last year. So really encouraged by Jeff Ulbrich's unit. And then another positive is the rookies. I think they all pretty much had a good game besides Brees Hall with some ball security issues in the rain. Max Mitchell, as good as you could have asked for, a rookie 4th round pick. He played better than Fant and Lakin. He played better than the veterans. Sauce, I mean, the kid looks the part. He unbelievable. Garrett Wilson, I think if he had more opportunities, he probably would have been, the leading receiver by a wide margin. 4 catches, 50 yards, and only 30% of the snaps. Look forward to what he can do with a higher workload. Brees Hall didn't have fumbling or drop issues at all at Iowa State, so I'm going to give him a little bit of a rookie in the rain first game pass on that. So I think the young guys in the defense, it looks great. And I'm sure we'll talk about the offense when we get to some of the negative stuff.
Yeah, sticking with the positives a little bit more. I agree
Yeah.
with you. I thought the corners, the two that they brought in the offseason, one through free agency and DJ Reed, who was playing under just awful circumstances. That story is just insane that he was able to play after finding out that his dad passed away just minutes before the game. And then with Sauce Gardner, I thought he looked, incredible. He looked the part. He was guarding Mark Andrews at times, which I was a little surprised with. I didn't think they would do it. Surprised in a positive way. I thought it was a good thing, and he held his own against Mark Andrews. A position that I was a little bit worried about going into this year was linebacker, but you mentioned it. I was really impressed with both Quan Alexander and Quincy Williams. I thought they were flying around, as you mentioned. Just did you feel the same way in terms of maybe a little bit more at ease with that linebacker position after week 1?
Absolutely. I think that the thing is with so many positions last year with the Jets, it felt like every guy was like one spot higher on the depth chart than you'd like. Like we like Bryce Hall as a number 4. Number 2, not so much. Quincy Williams as your second best linebacker, I don't know. But now as the third best linebacker when you run so much 4-2-5, him coming in situationally where you can really just cut him loose on some blitz packages and go fill some holes. I think that's the perfect role for Quincy Williams. And Sherwood had a really good preseason. So linebacker went from an area of big weakness on this team, and I think we have now like an average to maybe even slightly above average linebacker core. And who saw that coming?
Yeah, exactly. And another thing you mentioned was just the rookies in general. We just talked about Sauce Gardner, who was good. Um, were you surprised at all with Garrett Wilson's usage or lack thereof? Because I thought when he was on the field, he was extremely productive. I think he was 4 catches, 52 yards. That's a really nice day, but didn't feel like he was out as often as I thought he would be.
I think that was the single biggest coaching decision that I have a gripe with. Like a lot of it, like the drops and the fumbles. Yeah, obviously the coaches got to own everything, but there's only so much they could do. They're not playing. That to me was shocking because when they rolled out, they came out there on like it was 17 tight ends, like it was 1958. I mean, I was like, what is going on? I was like, I guess we're running it. But to me, the essentially that decision was to play Lawrence Cager over Garrett Wilson. That was criminal, in my opinion. And once he got the ball, you showed that he can make some plays. So I think they kind of admitted it in the post game presser. So I'm hoping that that changes in pretty short order because I just think the way this kid moves, man, I'm not going to say he's the next Jerry Rice, but it's undeniable to me that he's special with the ball in his hands. And I think we got to feature him.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think I agree. I think it was a mistake. You had Lawrence Cager out there. He had a holding penalty, and then on the next play fell down, which led to the interception. So it was like it was someone who probably made the roster as tight end four, and I don't know. It just seemed bizarre that he was getting more reps and more looks than someone who you took with a top 10 pick. It's not like someone who you're trying to work a rookie who you're working in slowly. This is a guy who you took with a top 10 pick. And then on top of that, also, it's not like he struggled throughout training camp in the preseason. He also looked good at both of those times. So just very bizarre to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's been so long since we had a first round pick wide receiver too, and now like he's posting on Instagram like begging to be get put on the field, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah, that's not exactly what you want to see. Max Mitchell is someone we mentioned too as a rookie who I was really impressed with. I thought, he would probably look like the weakest link on that offensive line. And that really wasn't the case. I think the left side of the line really struggled where the right side was more consistent. Would you agree with that assessment? And what do you think with his debut?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not one of the guys from Jets X Factor. Okay, I'm not Joe Blewett. I can't tell you his hand placement. He was running wham bams, thank you, ma'ams, all that. But I think it was apparent to our eyes. Like I expected it to be glaring. Like, oh my God, like Max Mitchell's getting blown up, and our offense is like single handedly getting destroyed because we're starting this fourth round rookie from the Sun Belt. That was not the case. I think he gave up like 3 pressures, maybe only one of the 3 sacks. On the left side of the offensive line, Laken Tomlinson, I'm not worried about just because I have a decade of a resume of him being, solid. I think he actually gave up more pressures in Sunday's game, like almost he did all of last year. So that's me. I'm hoping is an aberration. Fant, I'm honestly worried about his health because I followed training camp pretty closely, and he was like limited almost every day. It was like George Fant on a pitch count, veteran rest day, and then questionable all week. And then looking worse in that game than he did at any point last season. I got to wonder, anytime a 30-year-old guy over 300 pounds gets a knee surgery, you got to have your fingers crossed. So hopefully he bounces back because if he's not fully healthy too, then we're starting to really scramble at the tackle position.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And definitely the tackle depth is still something that I think is a little questionable at the moment. But I almost give Fant the benefit of the doubt because of how much he moved in like the last 3 weeks. He was on the left side, then the right side,
Yeah.
then back to the left side. And the injury on top of that, I think it's kind of cliche to say it, but I think it's going to take him maybe a week or two before he starts to look like himself again, which is kind of expected after he went back and forth so much.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. It's been like 5 or 6 times. It feels like just in the off season. And offensive line play continuity is just as important as talent. And you got to get used to the guys you're playing to your left and you're playing to your right. And obviously, when Laken's having a bad game, it can kind of be a domino effect. So I'm not hitting the panic button on Fant, but we'll see. Hopefully, he gets used to it back on the left side and he's fully healthy and ready to go.
Absolutely. And we talked about the offensive line. Obviously, it wasn't a great day for them overall, but what do you make of the Joe Flacco situation? Do you think it was the offensive line play in front of him, or do you think it was holding on to the ball forever? Like, where do you stand on that debate?
Yeah, I think that Matt, when you score pretty much 3 points, essentially when both teams are trying in an NFL game in 2022, everybody's got to wear some blame. I think the offensive coordinator, the quarterback, and the offensive line. Now, when you're getting pressure up the middle like that, it's tough. But the thing that's strange to me is when going into the game, like one of the reasons why I gave us a chance with Joe Flacco, I was like, okay, I know he's not mobile, he's not a starter, but I feel like he can do 2 things: get rid of the ball quickly and push the ball down the field. And he didn't do either. He didn't even try to throw the ball deep. And then, there were so many dropbacks where we're all just saying, throw it. And he just looked like not only was his mobility slow, I mean, Joe Flacco, I don't know if it was just seeing it in person, but I've never seen a quarter like he ran for like 3 minutes on a stopwatch, I swear. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? A first down? It was like a 1 yard loss. And Joe Flacco runs like old ladies on a Trader Joe's parking lot trying to get out of the rain. I mean, it was just a complete statue. But the thing was, his decisions were slow. So that was shocking. Now, in terms of should we go with him or Mike White, like the Strevler thing, I know it's fun. I joke about it on Twitter. It's not happening. They're not playing Chris Strevler. He has no reps with the first or second team at all. It's a good story that he's even, on the practice squad. But in terms of Flacco or Mike White, I'd roll with Flacco and I'd give him a 1/2 leash against Cleveland because we saw Joe Flacco play a good game in a Jets uniform against a good defense in Miami last year. Elijah Moore's best game as a Jet, maybe right in that game to the end. And then even some previous years backing up Sam Darnold, like he played good against the Patriots in prime time. So I think, although I was joining the Mike White chance, that was more just out of frustration for something different. And I don't know if you want to make your quarterback decisions just based on frustration.
No, absolutely. I think that's more than fair to give him a half. I wouldn't necessarily, and obviously they said that he's going to start, which was expected, but I wouldn't necessarily have blamed them if they did decide to go with Mike White in week 2, because for me, and you kind of said it just felt like everything he was doing was happening in slow motion. Like he was moving in quicksand. Anytime he was trying to, like, there's other quarterbacks in the league who aren't very mobile. Tom Brady's a perfect example, but at least it feels like he could step up in the pocket and avoid the rush. And it just felt like Flacco wasn't moving at all. So that's something that's a little bit concerning to me, but I hope it's something that, we don't necessarily see as an issue here this upcoming week against the Browns, because if so, they could be in for a long day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess we could kind of transition now and look at this game coming up this week against Cleveland. They have obviously Myles Garrett and a pretty good pass rush. Is that a concern for you in this game?
I think it's the biggest factor. Like to me, I think you're not going to be able to neutralize Myles Garrett. Those guys get paid $20 million for a reason, but you got to figure out a way to prevent him from. He can single handedly win this game for Cleveland. He really can with the way the Jets' offensive line played last week, with the way Fant played, and with the rookie and Mitchell. So that's a matchup I'm looking at. You gotta chip him. I want to see a tight end or a running back hitting him in the chin strap anytime you can. And then really you got to make him run sideline to sideline. How do you do that? Well, outside runs, screens, right? So now he's wanting to pass rush. Now he's got to run out there and try to tackle Garrett Wilson on a tunnel screen. And he's got to go chase down Michael Carter. And he's got to be jumping up, getting his hands up to try to knock down quick passes. You want to, in my opinion, have as few reps as possible where Myles Garrett can pin his ears back and tee off. And I think if we can do that, it should be a winnable game, even though we're road underdogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of feel the same way. And Garrett's someone who could, as you said, like wreck a game and really change the course of things. Um, what would your strength be then? Would it try to be like establishing the run? Because that was kind of the opposite of what they tried to do in week 1 with. I mean, Flacco threw 59 times. That seems almost like crazy to think about, that they had their backup quarterback throw almost 60 times in a game. So are we trying to establish the run here a little bit more?
Yes, with a caveat. So it's interesting. Michael Carter, I think he averaged 6 yards per carry, and then Joe Flacco averaged like 5.4 yards per throw attempt. So handing the ball off to Michael Carter was more efficient than throwing the football, which in today's modern NFL is kind of crazy. And I think that Michael Floor, who I really like I really believe that Michael Floor might be one of like the 2024, 2025 might be a hot head coaching name. And also he once met Sean McVay, so he's probably going to the Hall of Fame one day. But I mean, I think there was times last year where even it was like, we're down 10 and then we're just kind of completely giving up on the run. And then at the end of the game, it's like, oh, you're still kind of in it. Maybe you didn't need to do that. So I think, yes, establish the run. But when we do throw, I got to see throws past the sticks. You can't have it where you run the ball 2nd and 7, check down 3rd and 3, and now you're relying on converting like 5 third downs to score a touchdown. That's not sustainable. You have to be able to roll out on play action and steal chunks of yards, and then use the short passing game as an extension of the running game. But my mindset for this Jets team should be like run the ball until teams prove they can stop it. Also, our offensive line is built that way. All of our offensive linemen, I think with the exception of George Fant, are probably better run blockers than they are pass blockers, especially the guards. Lakin and AVT had an elite run blocking game on Sunday. So I think that's what we want to lean on until the Browns prove that they could stop it.
Absolutely. And obviously, we know that Cleveland, they have a pretty nice 1-2 punch at running back. Now, this past week, the Jets did a really nice job against the run, something they struggled with last year. Do you expect them to continue that, or do you think we see a regression a little bit in week 2?
Well, I think the same with the Jets. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to give us the benefit of the doubt. I think they're going to go in with the mindset that they can run the ball down our throats. And Nick Chubb had himself an absolute day last week as well. But I was really encouraged with what I saw from the Baltimore Ravens offense. Obviously, they were down to like their third, fourth string running backs. But even Lamar Jackson, half the time you count him as a running back, and they set the edge. Quinnen, I know he didn't get a lot of normie stats, but if you watch the game, Quinnen was shedding double teams and doing his part. And honestly, I know it looks like we're going to be maybe without Whitehead, which is like, it's a really tough matchup because it's like perfect for him to be another linebacker in the box. But I'm going to stack the box, man. And, if Jacoby Brissett is dropping dimes over the heads of Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, and that's how we lose, so be it. We'll have to hold the L. But I think that's what you want to do. It's you force Jacoby Brissett to beat you with his arm, and you stack the box and you bring the heat.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's absolutely the way that you have to go about it. Have them beat you over the top. And you said it, Jordan Whitehead, potentially not playing is going to be a really big deal. And LaMarcus Joyner didn't necessarily look great in week one. So what's the confidence level in that position group, I guess, right now?
Well, I think, there was a couple of guys this offseason, we're looking at defense, like, man, if they go down, and it was like CJ Mosley and Jordan Whitehead were kind of the two big names. It's like, oh, who's behind them? Honestly, at this point, like, if Tony Adams was good enough to make the team over Will Parks and Jason Pinnock, how much worse could he be than LaMarcus Joyner and Ashton Davis is my question. Especially with Joyner. I mean, Joyner to me, and I don't want to like just, trash a player or anything. I understand that the coaches like him and he's done some decent things in this league, but a guy who's 5'8", who hasn't played in a couple of years, and the last time he played, it was nickel corner, and he didn't play it that well. And he's like the last line of defense, and he goes out there, and I think like two of the big plays, like the blown coverage and the big penalty, were like single-handedly tied to LaMarcus Joyner. So it's probably going to, now here's the flip side of that coin is, okay, like Ashton Davis is really young, and then Adams is really young. So like you probably don't want to start both of them. So they'll probably keep Joyner, the vet. I'm assuming it's going to be Joyner and Ashton Davis. But at the end of the day, your coaches cut their teeth through adversity. And I think that if your strong safety being out a game makes it so your defense, can't compete, then that's a referendum on your coaching staff. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that this defensive line is good enough to generate enough pressure, and the corners are good enough to mask some deficiencies at the safety position. And hopefully Whitehead gets back soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Is this, so I guess my question is, did last week's performance change your mindset, not only on this upcoming game in week 2, but anything else going forward? Or is it kind of just you look at it and say, okay, how do we adjust now from here?
Yeah, I think that offensively, I think it's been a weird week for Jets fans, because it's like, I don't want to hear that being down at 21 points at home is good. Like, I just don't want to hear that anymore. And I know Robert Saleh, it's like, oh, instant coffee. And it's like, bro, we've been bad for 6 years, man. I know a lot of that's not your fault, but I do want the Jets to be competitive. And it hasn't changed my total outlook on the season. I think offensively, you kind of have to put a little bit of a caveat in there until Zach Wilson gets back. But I think we should be able to go in there, and we should be able to be in it to the final minute against Cleveland. You mentioned it in your podcast, man. All those other teams that found a way to win. So I guess what I would ask the Jets fans, because I know they've been giving me some heat recently, because I have higher expectations than most. Maybe they're too high, obviously, because I thought they might win that game. I got acquainted with some Baltimore Ravens fans the past couple of weeks, and now I look like kind of an idiot. But I guess circle a date on my calendar of like, when can I expect this team to be decent, right? Because there's a lot of teams that decided for that day to be last week, and hopefully the Jets will decide for it to be Sunday, and I think they will.
Absolutely. That would be tremendous. And you kind of hinted at it a little bit with Robert Saleh's comments this week. I want to get your take on just where you stand on whether it be the holding the receipts or the instant coffee quote. What's your take with Saleh's week? Because to me, it bothered me a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it did irk me a little bit. And I think that, like, just to put obviously the caveat in there is like, if he wins, we don't really care what he's saying. And if he loses, we don't really care what he's saying, right? And it's tough when a coach gets to the podium after a loss, the fans are just going to say, shut up and win almost no matter what. So I'll give him, his credit there. But to me, it just struck me as inconsistent and just weird, some of the stuff he says, because he comes out and he says they had an expansion team. I don't think that's a lie. I think it's kind of disrespectful considering a lot of
Sure.
those players are still in the league and a couple of them are still on his team. But it is true. And the expansion team, you're not in the instant coffee age. So he's like asking for patience. And if he just said that, okay, fine. Maybe we need to be patient. And then he's out there, oh, we're taking receipts. We're going to show you. And then it's like, and if he just said that, that'd be fine. But it's like he's doing like hold me back routine. Like I'm gonna show you not right now. 2 or 3 years from now, you bet I'm gonna come over there in 2 or 3 years from now and kick it. Like it's like, dude, what are we doing, man? Like pick a lane. Like Rex Ryan came out and picked a lane, and he was like, he just talked that talk, and then he went and backed it up, so it was fine. So now Robert Saleh, I think for him, man, I don't want to say I don't want to overreact, but Cleveland is feeling like kind of a must-win game because I think going into the season, we could all agree we have to break the September losing streak. And are we really going to upset the Cincinnati Bengals 2 years in a row? Probably not. So your best bet is Sunday. Go get a W, dude.
Absolutely. And kind of the last thing that I had for you, I don't know if you saw, but it looked like Zach Wilson was like semi practicing today. Any change? Do you think there's any inkling of a chance that he could come back maybe in week 3 instead of that week 4? Or are we still holding out hope that week 4 is the earliest?
Well, I think that would be the earliest. I think moving him up 1 week would be the earliest. And he was moving around. It wasn't just like he was on a bike. Like he was moving around, shuffling through the pads there. So that's definitely really, really encouraging. And I think I'm gonna, I know they kind of botched the communication of it, but at the end of the day, it's a medical decision. I'm sure they're getting advice from doctors. And if they brought him back early and he got hurt again, we'd all be killing him. So
Yep.
if they want to err on the side of patience, I think that's fine. And I think week 3 would be the earliest, but if I had to put my money on it, I think they stick to what they kind of said with the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, that seems to make the most sense. So, all right, where can people find your stuff if they want to follow along with you?
Yeah, man. So the Buffalo Jet fan, just how it sounds. Got a YouTube channel. Talk pretty much Jets. Try to get a video out like every other day or so. Live streams. Me and Paul Boy Green go live once a week. So come by, check that out. It's a good time. And as I always say, my YouTube videos, they're all right. But I'm undefeated on Jets Twitter. So you got to follow me on Twitter because it's elite stuff there. And the videos are just all right.
Well, one, the videos are tremendous, and I was telling you off air before we got started, the growth that I've seen from you is truly impressive, and it's very much so a welcome to the club of Jets content creators here. And I do agree with the Twitter content. So if you're not following on Twitter, it's you like to keep it light, which is kind of where I'm at too. Like we can't take ourselves so seriously, right?
Right. Yeah. Gotta have it. If nothing else, man, we gotta have fun. We gotta stick together.
Love it. Make sure you give them a follow. I'm Matt O'Leary. We'll talk to you next time.